How do you go from having the biggest box office in DC history to this?
Real quick, make sure to subscribe, y'all. I am 3 months behind on my child support and I am banned on Jerry Springer. Support the fam.
I made the mistake of watching Aquaman 2 after reading some cool Aquaman comics when the first one came out. I was super hyped to see this. Catching up on all its history of Aquaman, Black Manta, reading the story with the Aqua Baby, in live action, this would be pretty good. That was a mistake. This movie was so disappointing. With Aquaman 1, it was a great film and it stood out because it had actually good writing, good visuals, and a cohesive story. Somehow, this movie learned nothing about that. The best compliments I could give it are some of the actors, had solid performances, the CGI looked great at times, and the amazing portrayal of Manta. Yahya killed it. His arc is one of corruption, and you can see how he took that character in the first film and went even crueler for this one. Some of the best one-liners. However, that's all I can say. The arcs of other characters, big moments, a lot of the jokes felt forced, out of place, and most of the time, rushed. This film was the last in the DCEU, and they played it entirely too safe. When you have nothing to set up, no real plans for any of these characters, why not give more creative control? Right now, the movie is sitting at a horrible box office and a horrible Rotten Tomato score compared to the last one. I can't for the life of me understand why someone would push out the guy who gave you $1 billion movie. James Wan style felt almost completely gone in this movie. There's a lot of studio executive decisions. The writing was especially strange. There is this weird, really weird P joke that happens 3 times. And I can't help but think that it's all a writer's barely disguised fetish. How do you get Jason Momoa to agree to get peed on 3 times? Weird. Speaking of which, I've grown to hate this version of Aquaman. He is too goofy, throws out excessive jokes, and doesn't take anything seriously, which is in deep contrast to Manta, who again was played exceptionally well. However, he didn't have any scene partners outside of Arthur's dad to really give him the space to be a big bad. Aquaman did not elevate his presence. They had cool fights and visuals, but the chemistry between them is nothing like how I wanted it to be from the comics. The chemistry in most of the movie is poor. Between Mara and Arthur, Atlanta and Tom. Patrick Wilson was clearly the best actor here, and still his lines are horrible. None of what they gave them to work with felt natural or meshed well. Back to Atlanta. Nicole Kidman felt completely lifeless. Her scenes with her sons were some of the coldest and most uncaring moments. I could tell a lot of this movie was shoveled out like crap. The emotional moments having no weight likely to them being reshoots. It explains why Jason Momoa was so desperate to pitch him as Lobo to the world during the press run of this movie, throwing it under the bus.
The truth of it is, I guess if the audience loves it, then, there's a possibility. But right now, I'm like, it's not looking too good.
And I saw that Lobo cover and I was like, well,
Look at the guy.
look at the guy.
I was a big Lobo fan growing up, so I've had every comic, so that would be really cool.
Which I actually can agree on. He's an actor who does a good job of playing himself and uses personality, like Ryan Reynolds, who has a similar humor to Deadpool. Jason is spot on for Lobo. If anything, he might elevate Lobo given some creative freedom, which really is the key reason why the DCEU failed miserably. The studios had little to no faith in any of the creatives, like Snyder, and decided to mix things up, switch things around, and generally make a mess of things before any cohesive vision had formed. Now, I'm not the biggest Snyder fan, however, I enjoyed his cut of the Justice League. When given some room to breathe, the man can create something memorable and interesting. If they had let him tell the story out, it wouldn't have been so universally hated by critics and fans. And that's the big issue with films like Aquaman 2, Ant-Man Quantumania, and to some extent, The Marvels. That wasn't so bad, but it has some of these issues, which is studio engineering. The feel of an executive breathing down the neck of the writers is so palpable in these films. The forced jokes, the weird callbacks, and how much they shove in random scenes of action and explosions to keep you engaged like you're a child. It feels like there was no artistic vision to begin with. With films like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Man of Steel, there are themes, messages, and characters that all have focused arcs. Where in Aquaman 2, all the characters are half-assed in their story arcs. Black Manta had this revenge arc that's beautifully set up in Aquaman 1, with impassioned scenes and a powerful showing on Yahya Abdul-Mateen's part. In Aquaman 2, his arc is co-opted by the lame, real big bad Necron, who's just some green skeleton dude. And he has cool fights, but there is no real change, no lessons learned, no lasting after effects. He simply starts out the movie setting out to kill Aquaman and his family, and does none of it. And then ends the movie seemingly killing himself, which honestly I kind of liked. Very Black Manta to not accept help from somebody and just kill yourself instead. What's worse is the real big bad was even lamer. He sets out corrupting people's minds and hoping to be unfrozen. But the second he gets unfrozen, Aquaman just throws his trident at him and poof, he's gone. Like, what the fuck was the point of that? He set up a villain with all this history tied to him, right? Tied to Arthur, being his ancestor and having a forgotten kingdom. It's all amazing stuff, right? And then you end it so abruptly. Let's dive into that history, actually, this lore. How do people like Orm react to learning this? What's Arthur's interpretation of imprisoning your brother for all of eternity? After, mind you, he just released his brother. You surely see parallels between Necron and Orm, but they don't talk about any of that. Aquaman just says some corny shit and then kills the guy immediately. Speaking of Aquaman, they really did him dirty. Made him an auxiliary character in Orm's redemption, in lieu of actually pursuing alien politics in a meaningful way. They could have had Orm teach Arthur about politics, help him get shit done, and fight against their government to establish better policies, making the Brotherhood have more weight to it, and fixing what Atlan and Necron broke. But no, this film really shat the bed in that, and they skipped past all that setup with a really cheap payoff, and then fast forward to an Iron Man ripoff where, I'm not kidding, they do the I Am Iron Man scene beat for beat. How the fuck did they do this so poorly? This film could have been something exceptional, but now it's just forgettable. Do not see this movie, and just wait till 2025 for a real DC cinematic universe to begin. Peace.